For any public transportation agency, safety is obviously job one. But let's be honest, having safety policies scattered across a dozen different documents isn't a real strategy. It's just paperwork. So today, we're going to dive into how you can build a real, living safety system that actually gets out of the binder and into your daily operations.
So, this is really the big question we're tackling, right? How do you take that mission statement off the wall and actually bake it into every single thing your agency does every single day? Well, the answer is all about turning a plan into a living, breathing system.
And that system, it has a name. It's called PTASP, which stands for the Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan. Now, this isn't just a nice idea. It's a federal requirement from the FTA. The whole point is to pull all your safety efforts out of those dusty binders and put them into one single, comprehensive plan that's not only approved by your board, but also actively tracks how you're doing.
Okay, so who actually needs one of these? Well, the rule applies to pretty much all urbanized area grantees, so agencies getting federal funds in cities, and most rural ones too. Now, if you're a really small agency, your state might grant an exemption, but you can't just assume that's the case. The big takeaway here is be proactive. A quick call to your state's Department of Transportation is a whole lot easier than dealing with a finding later on.
So here's our game plan for today. We're going to break PTASP down by looking at the 4 pillars it's built on. I want you to think of this like building a house. First, you need a solid foundation, then a detailed blueprint, then a way to inspect your work as you go, and finally, you need to create a culture that makes it a safe home. Let's start with that foundation. So Pillar 1 is all about the safety management policy. This is the absolute bedrock, the concrete foundation for your entire safety program. It's the official top-level commitment that says, around here, safety is our #1 priority, period. And let's be really clear about what this foundation looks like. It does not need to be some massive, complicated document. Seriously, 1 page is often totally fine. Its job isn't to be long. Its job is to be crystal clear about your agency's intent and the basic structure of your commitment to safety. So what actually goes on that 1 page? Well, it really just boils down to 4 key things. First, a board-approved statement that officially puts safety at the top of the list. Second, a clear definition of your main safety goals. Third, a breakdown of who is responsible for what, all the way from the executive director down to every single employee. And finally, a clear commitment to always getting better. That's it. That's your foundation. All right, our foundation is poured. Now it's time for Pillar 2, safety risk management. If the policy is the foundation, think of this part as the detailed architectural blueprint. This is where we get analytical and really map out everything that could possibly go wrong. This quote just nails it, doesn't it? It's a structured process for looking into the future. You identify potential dangers, you figure out how bad they could be, and then, and this is the most important part, you make a concrete plan to deal with them before they ever have a chance to happen. And this process breaks down into 4 really logical steps. First, you identify hazards. We're talking things like driver fatigue, vehicle failures, you name it. Then, you analyze them by asking 2 simple questions. How likely is this to happen? And how bad would it be if it did? Step 3 is where the rubber meets the road. You implement controls, like a new training program or a beefed-up maintenance schedule. And finally, and you can't forget this, you don't just set it and forget it. You have to monitor your controls to make sure they're actually working. That's what makes it a dynamic system. And this just shows you how simple it can be. This isn't some crazy 50-page assessment. It's a straightforward chart. Just look at that first row for driver fatigue. The hazard is identified. The severity is serious. Likelihood occasional. So what are we going to do about it? A 2-driver protocol on long routes. Who's in charge of that? The ops manager. When do we check on it? Quarterly. Boom. This 1-page document proves you've thought through the risks and have a plan. Okay, so the foundation is in and the blueprint is drawn. Now for Pillar 3, safety assurance. This is your quality control. Think of it as the ongoing home inspection. It's how you continuously monitor your operations to make absolutely sure your safety systems are working the way you designed them to. For smaller agencies, I know this can sound a little overwhelming, but you don't need to track 100 different things. The key here is to start simple. Just pick 2 or 3 really important safety metrics. That keeps the whole process manageable and makes sure you're focused on what truly matters most. So, what kind of stuff should you be tracking? Well, key metrics usually include things like accidents, maintenance issues, and something that's incredibly valuable, near-miss reports. You also want to track staff injuries and customer complaints. But the goal isn't just to collect the data, it's to use it.
By spotting trends, you can see if your safety plans are working or if a new problem is starting to pop up. It lets you be proactive instead of just reactive. Now, a really critical part of assurance is setting performance targets. You have to have documented goals, like reduce preventable accidents by 10%. And here's something that should be a huge relief. The FTA does not penalize you for missing a target. They penalize you for having no targets at all. Why? Because they are way more interested in seeing a culture of continuous improvement than in punishing agencies that set ambitious goals. It's the process that counts. And that brings us to our final pillar, safety promotion. We've built the house, but this is what makes it a truly safe home. It's all about the communication, the training, and the daily conversations that build a living, breathing safety culture where absolutely everyone is engaged. And this stuff does not have to be expensive. I'm talking about things like a 10-minute toolbox talk at the start of a meeting, a quick safety briefing before a shift, or simply recognizing an employee who spotted a potential hazard. These are the small, consistent actions that build a strong culture. It's all about making safety a constant, visible part of the conversation. So there you have it, the 4 pillars: policy, risk management, assurance, and promotion. That's the what. Now let's get super practical and talk about the how. How do you actually build this thing? And maybe more importantly, how do you avoid the most common mistakes? Look, building your first PTASP does not have to take a year. This timeline here shows how it can be done in a very manageable 4 to 6 weeks. It's broken down into logical steps. Start with the data you already have, draft the core parts of the plan, set your targets, and then get that all-important board approval. It's an achievable sprint, not a marathon. Okay, let's talk about what not to do. The FTS sees the same mistakes over and over again, so think of this slide as your cheat sheet for avoiding them. Ask yourself, is my plan current? Was it formally approved by the board with minutes to prove it? Are my targets specific, or are they vague like, we want to be safe? Does my risk matrix actually have solutions, not just a list of problems? And finally, do I have the data to back it all up? If you can say yes to these, you are way ahead of the game. And ultimately, this is what it all comes down to. The paper plan is just a tool. It's a necessary tool for sure, but it's still just a tool. The real prize, the real value of doing all this work is the system it creates and the safety-first culture it helps you build. When your employees see leadership taking this seriously, they will too. So that leaves us with one final question to think about. Is safety at your agency something that lives on a shelf, something you only dust off when there's an audit, or is it a living, breathing part of every decision, every pre-trip inspection, and every single mile you travel? The whole goal of PTASP is to make absolutely sure it's the latter.